Hey, hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. And I've been a social worker, a marriage and family therapist, a pastoral counselor, a priest, and I've been helping people for over 40 years to gain a sense of self-differentiation, to help them in their relationships, in their careers, and their businesses. And today's video is entitled Stop Thinking with Your Feelings. I hope you'll join this YouTube channel, and I also hope you will subscribe. There are 3 workshops that are available on my website, which is listed down in the description area of this video. And I'd like to talk about, again, stop thinking with your feelings. I have clients who are perplexed about why their families cannot accept or understand them, especially if they're trying to present their own views or values or opinions, or even about topics they don't really have a strong position on. But even getting a family to understand you either don't want to talk about it, or it's not an issue that you have a strong opinion about, and how difficult it is to get others to, again, accept and understand you. Let's take John's family. John's family is, say, all Methodists. And I grew up in the Methodist church, but I've also been involved in many other churches as well throughout my life. But John grew up in a Methodist family, and he chooses to join the Catholic Church, whether because he wants to marry someone who's a Catholic, or he's been converted to become a Catholic. And he asked me, why does my family have the inability to hear me or accept me or logically understand me about my choice of church or spirituality? And we are very frustrated with why others cannot accept our differences. Or some of you, no matter what your politics are, had some discussions about whether Trump should be president or Biden should be president. And again, when we talk about religion and politics, many times, or money, or very sensitive issues, you find that it's very difficult to have that logical, rational discussion about it in a calm way, that others that you encounter are having such difficulty not hearing you, understanding you, or accepting where you're at. And it can seem impossible to get through, to be heard, to be understood, to have my view be accepted. Another example would be, let's say Janet is married to an adult child of an alcoholic, who is Derek, but Derek denies that it has any impact on him whatsoever. Janet sees many ways the traits of ACOA affects their marriage and their kids, their parenting, reactivity, the relationship, and even a logical, rational, or calm discussion about the traits of ACOA is met with resistance or denial or illogical mental formulations. Such as, well, I know my mother and father were both alcoholic, but they didn't have any effect on me and don't have any effect on me now as an adult, which is kind of an illogical mental formulation. And Derek truly acts like he believes that. And even when you just bring up the facts don't matter. And why do we meet with this resistance from others? And my theory is this: many people experience low levels of self-differentiation and experience a fusion between their feeling process and their thinking process or mental process. And if you have low self-differentiation, then you have more of a fusion between thoughts and feelings. And we don't separate those very much. It's fused. And this fusion is what I call feel-think. There are other words for it. I think some people have used what do they call, affect thinking, some motivational beliefs. There's some other words out there to describe the feel-think. Feel-think seems to be the easiest for me. When our feelings or our emotional system drives our thoughts and feelings, and our feelings, when our emotional system drives our thoughts and feelings are in the driver's seat, then we are feel thinking. And I think for many people, feelings are in the driver's seat, even when it comes to their beliefs and thoughts. Again, if you are someone who believes something very strongly, that Methodists are the only true Christians in the world, and then somebody wants to join the Catholic Church, then you don't understand that at all. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever to you. Oftentimes, what's underneath it is feel thinking, not think thinking. Recognizing feel think in ourselves and others is vital for maturity and self-differentiation. Also, why is it that someone can be against a family member vigorously and a week later they're best friends? Then the next week they're scapegoated again. I suspect feel thinking is at work in the family. There's a difference between your feelings informing and enlightening your thinking versus feel think, which is feelings running your thinking and driving what you believe. And again, try to talk to someone who doesn't believe we landed on the moon and see how well you do in trying to convince them that maybe we did. And it is my opinion that we did. I remember in my youth seeing that and experiencing that. But again, if someone has a conspiratorial feel think process going on, then they are going to deny anything that they see or any thoughts that challenge that thinking, which is propelled by feelings. And often this process is unconscious. I think what's helpful is to try to work on making it conscious and being aware that we can be aware of that and we can make that conscious. How do we identify if we're feel thinking? What would you want? What questions would you ask yourself? Well, ask yourself, how much anxiety are you experiencing right now? How calm are you? My hunch is if I'm talking to someone who doesn't believe we landed on the moon, and I'm going, well, I think we probably did. That's my feeling. I would guess their anxiety is starting to go up. Their heartbeat may be going faster, their breathing may be going faster, and they are not calm about this issue. Or talk to someone about politics and about the opposing candidate. Heart rate goes up, breathing starts to go up, anxiety starts to go up, and that fuels that thought process. We can ask ourselves, are we feeling reactive right now? Because if we're feeling reactive, we're probably in the process of feel thinking. And that's where we're having these feelings. The emotional system is kind of overloading the thinking process, and it will go along with the feelings, no matter how logical or illogical it is. Just like in Derek's situation with his wife, and he's an ACOA. Even though there's a part of him that knows what his wife is saying is true, but his feelings or denial and his feeling process starts to overrun his thought process. And that's when he starts saying, no, I don't think ACOA issues have anything to do with our marriage or anything else in our lives. I know in working with alcoholics and addicts for many years, treating alcoholics, addicts, heroin addicts. I remember in a treatment facility I was in, I was the family counselor. We had very hardcore addicts that came from Michigan and the Detroit area. And then we had more local alcoholics and addicts in our area. And I'm not saying Detroit has the worst, drug problem. I'm just saying that heroin was a big problem at that time. and they would send them down to our treatment center because they thought we did some of the best work with alcoholics and addicts. Try to convince someone who's an alcoholic that, his drinking may be a problem. And what are you going to get? Lots of denial, lots of feel think. Now it's going to come out as thoughts, but it's going to be feel think. I remember talking to an executive who had an alcohol problem, and he had a alcohol abuse disorder, and it was probably close to moderate to severe. And I would ask him questions. He had a DUI in which he had ran into some parked cars going home after drinking at the bar. And he denied that hitting the parked cars had anything to do with his drinking. And he was talking like a reasonable person. I mean, he wasn't, my hunch is, though, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of things going on within him. And he just could not see the connection between him hitting the parked cars and his drinking. And of course, the police arrested him with a DUI, and he was clearly, well over the limit. But he could not put those together because his feelings were running his thought process. So ask yourself if you're feeling reactive. Look and observe if you're being reactive. If you don't feel reactive, are you being reactive? In other words, I notice that when someone brings up an issue, and they're telling me that, hey, Jerry, you don't believe that we actually landed on the moon, do you? And then I might start to get more anxious, or my heart beats faster, or I breathe a little faster. And and I want to convince them that that's not true. And then I go, hold on, I'm being reactive, and I may be feeling reactive, but I'm also being reactive because I want to convince them that that's not true. And if I'm really thoughtful and not feel thinking, I'm able to give different responses. For example, if somebody says, I don't, Jerry, we didn't land on the moon. And I would say, well, whether we did or not, there's a lot of conflicting evidence. And, I hope, as we both grow, we may learn the truth of that. So look and see if you're feeling reactive. Look and see if you're being reactive. Is your heart beating faster? Do you have the feeling of fight or flight? How enmeshed are you with the beliefs and thoughts right now? Do they mean everything? Like in my case, it just, this person is crazy. Why did they think we didn't land on the moon? That's ridiculous. This is just absolutely insane. I'm way too connected to the need to convince them that we landed on the moon. I don't need to convince them of that. It's not required. It's not a belief I'm not going to die on that hill of whether we landed on the moon or not. It's not going to make a difference right now. So how enmeshed am I with my beliefs? If somebody says to me, well, Jerry, I just think self-differentiation is ridiculous. Well, that's something that's important to me. But I'm not overfused with it where I could say, well, then if I were you, I would stay far away from it. Then if you notice, I'm not in an argumentative mode or a defensive mode at that point. And again, is the threat to your beliefs a threat to you personally? Because if somebody says, well, hey, we never landed on the moon. Well, okay. I don't have a personal stake of us landing on the moon. I happen to believe we did, but if you don't believe we did, good luck with that belief. Good luck with my belief. Ask, how do others affect my feelings when I'm around them? Because if we already start to feel a racing heart, fast breathing, anxiety, if we're already in that mode, then that's probably going to tell us we're probably more likely to do some feel thinking, and we want to stay calm. How much am I able to think clearly and not be overwhelmed by feelings when I talk to other people? How much can I be my real self around other people? The less self, the more likely we will revert to feel thinking. Like having a self, meaning, well, my self believes that we landed on the moon. And that doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. It doesn't make any difference. That's my belief. That's who I am. And that's okay. If you don't believe that, that's fine, but I do. And I don't need to injure our relationship or become reactive because of it. How much do we value our own values? How much do I value my beliefs? How much do I value my subjectivity? And subjectivity is what you think is going on. And, I want to value my beliefs, but that doesn't mean I have to argue them or defend them. I listen to you based on how calm and thoughtful you are. Many of us listen to people in our lives who are highly charged, very anxious, intense, and illogical or ridiculous in their thoughts. And we struggle to figure this out. Because if I can already tell someone's in a feel-think mode, why do I think logic is going to pull them out of it? Because it's not. Typically, logic does not pull them out of it. They have to have a conversion experience for them to believe something different. They may need to hit bottom, like in the case of the executive who's an alcoholic. He may need to hit bottom because me just telling him, hey, Bob, you've got a really severe problem here. And I'm sorry you don't see that. But your job is going to fire you, and you don't see any connection between your drinking and hitting those parked cars going home. And so I know he's feel thinking, and there's nothing wrong with me continuing to say without being defensive, Bob, I believe you're hurting, and I believe you have a problem. I'm not shaming you. But I believe you have a problem, and I'm going to continue to believe that. When we have these symptoms, our thoughts and logic are guided by our emotional system, and our thinking system is sitting in the passenger seat. When we have these symptoms of greater anxiety, fast heart rate, breathing faster, feeling anxious, or feeling intense. Maybe that's another way. People will kind of get all exercised or intense about something. And I know passionate, they become passionate about it. Well, you can be passionate about something without feel thinking, but we have to be really mature and careful when we're passionate, that it truly is a thinking process, not a feel thinking process. Again, we are much more likely to feel when our anxiety is lower. We are much more likely to think when our anxiety is higher. Use the feel-think model to hear other people. They are expressing thoughts fueled, justified, and backed up by their feelings, often not facts. In other words, again, the process, we see what we want to see. And when we see what we want to see, it's often feel thinking that we're seeing that way. Feel, think, illogical, irrational expressions by other people are not about something, Feel, think, illogical, irrational expressions by other people are about something they need and not about me. They need to have that belief. And we tend to think, well, I've got to convince them out of it. No, it's not something you need. It's something they need. They're using that for defense, protectiveness, and it's something they need to hold on to. Now, again, you have a right to say, well, Bob, I still think you have a problem. Or, John, I just want to say, I have a little different thought about the moon. I do think we landed there. But, hey, what's for lunch? Let me give you an example. And here's one way to think about, and I think using think feel rather than feel think. When you are, well, if somebody says to me, well, you're just oversensitive and a troublemaker, I turn it into, I think you need me to be oversensitive and a troublemaker for you to feel at ease. That's how I hear that statement. Another statement, why can't you just get along with everybody in the family? I think, why do you need me to not get along with everybody in the family? Because they're expressing their need about you, not the truth about you, but their need about you, which is often a feel think process. I think you're a fool for marrying her. She's not of our faith, and we don't, and we won't be able to relate as families. I think, why does this system or person need me to be the fool and marry the wrong person? Because of their fears, their concerns, their anxiety, and many times shame. You know, if we're all a Methodist family and my son marries a Catholic and I'm very connected to my Methodist personhood, and that is a part of who I am, but in a kind of an immature way, then now I'm going to explain to my other Methodist friends why my son married a Catholic. And so I feel some shame about that. So when I talk to my son, I'm talking to him with those feelings of fear of shame, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And so I'm going, why would you want to marry somebody? Blah, 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 blah. You know that. Blah, 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 blah. And then we do all of that. Some tips you might be aware of. Be aware of your own feeling storms. When a storm is going on emotionally, you're probably feel thinking. Be aware of defensiveness. If you're being way too defensive, you're probably feel thinking. Be aware of argumentativeness within yourself. If you feel like I need to argue with them and get this right, these will trigger your feelings to jump into the driver's seat and not stay in the passenger seat. If I'm someone who's marrying outside of my family's faith, and my family comes to me, and I'm just using that as an example, there could be any number of, taking a job they don't like, buying a car in my situation, buying a car that my brother doesn't like. It's when they say, well, how can you buy a foreign-made car? Well, I write the check or I go to the bank and get the loan. I don't have to defend why I'm choosing to buy a foreign-made car, an American-made car, or a German-made car, or whatever car I want to buy. If I'm paying for it, I guess I'll buy the car I want to buy. And I will logically say, because that is my preference, because that is what I like, and that's what I'd like to buy. But I don't understand why you're taking that stand. Well, I'm really not taking a stand. I'm buying a car that I would like. And then, interestingly enough, many years later, my brother buys foreign-made cars and I'm buying American cars. Whereas before it caused arguments back then that I was buying a foreign car. And isn't it funny how it flips? Because a feel think is how it can flip. Take thinking breaks when interacting with others or spouses or friends or family members, people in authority. Go calm down. Reset feelings to the passenger seat and let the thinking remain in the driver's seat. It's not easy, but it is a practice that you can do. And I coach people to do that and to learn how to do that. And they find it very helpful. And it's very helpful for their recovery and in their goals as well, because that happens on a business level, on an executive level, on a marital level, on a leadership level. It happens on all levels. And if we can master that, we can really be effective as people and effective as leaders and effective in our marriages and relationships. You might want to read the book by Mark Manson. I hate the title, but Everything is Effed, a book about hope. And it's actually a very good book. I just wish he might have used another title for that. But I like his Newton's Law of Emotions. And I think they're great. And I think they really do. And he does talk about the passenger seat and driver's seat for our feeling and thinking process. I also have reading lists on self-differentiation. If you're interested in those, send me an email. You can see my contact information below. I do want to say, let me be clear, there's an important place for feelings. I'm not denigrating feelings. I'm saying they shouldn't be in the driver's seat. We can gain information from our feelings. It's very important to learn to identify and express feelings. Our feelings can tell us things about us and the relationship. This video is about the importance of the thinking system in relationships and how it can get hijacked and driven by our feeling system, which actually began long ago when we were growing up. I want to mention I have a workshop coming up on April 10th, 2021, Saturday from 1 to 5. It's hosted on Zoom, and it's entitled Overcoming Guilt and Shame Through Family of Origin Work. I hope you'll register now for the early bird fee, that it will go up as the workshop gets closer. There are 3 workshops available on my website that make a great mini masterclass. Check out all 3. They're for sale or rent on my website. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.